Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Today we are going to put a polyurethane finish on this guitar neck. So if you've been watching my stuff recently, you'll probably recall I'm doing kind of a crazy burnt finish guitar, which I'm pretty excited for. And of course, in order to complement it properly, I figured I needed a burnt finish neck. So I've already done all of the burning work on this one. I think it's looking pretty good. It's got some nice patterning to it. Rosewood fretboard rather, maple neck. And it's time now to put a finish on the neck to protect this burning and make it smoother so that it's nice to play. So what I'm gonna do for that is I'm gonna use some wipe-on polyurethane. I'm gonna show you how to apply that to get a nice smooth finish. If you've been following my channel for a while, you'll already know the technique, but hey, we'll do it anyway. Now, poly isn't always the best choice for a neck. It is a good choice, but of course you can use a variety of things. You can use tung oil, teak oil, lacquer, polyurethane, even enamel if you want to. They give slightly different feels. True oil too is a pretty popular one. And you know, they've each kind of got their benefits. Poly is going to be probably the hardest of the bunch, not in terms of difficulty in application, but in terms of finish hardness. So it's going to result in kind of the most durable finish, but it gives less coloring and yeah, it just, a lot of people prefer some of those other options, but poly's probably one of the easier ones to apply and the fastest, and that is what we're going to use for this one. So I'm using Minwax wipe-on poly for this neck. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to pick some up. If you don't want to use the wipe-on stuff specifically, you can get the brush on, use a little bit of paint thinner, thin it down, and you end up with essentially the same thing. The only real difference is that this stuff's a bit thinner. So I'm going to be using a couple different application methods for the poly here. I'm going to be using some 1500 grit sandpaper and then a shop towel. And the reason I do that is the 1500 grit sandpaper comes first. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll have seen me do this before. It creates a very fine sawdust which mixes with the poly and creates a slurry, which acts as a bit of a grain filler. So it's really, in my opinion, the best way to get a very, very smooth finish while keeping it very thin. In order to get a very smooth finish, if you're not going to be filling, you're going to have to do a lot more building up. So yeah, for me, this is a way to keep the finish thin and still have it just glass smooth. Now I'm looking for two kind of different finishes here. I want a nice kind of gloss, semi-gloss look on the headstock on both sides, but on the back of the neck, I don't want that. On the back of the neck, I want it to be more of a satin or matte kind of look because the gloss causes my hand to stick when I play, and I'm sure it's like that for a lot of people. So I don't want that kind of squeaking, causing my hand to slow down. I want to be able to play fast, move up and down the neck quickly. So for that, I'm going to use exclusively the sandpaper, and that's going to allow me to get that nice smooth finish like we said, but it's also going to keep it from glossing up too much because there won't be any buildup because it's all going to get kind of sanded back into the grain a little bit and just leave a very thin layer on top. And I'm doing it with 1500 grit, which is pretty much what I would use if I had a gloss finish. I would go over with 1500 grit and sand it back to smooth it out to kind of a satiny look so that my hand would move quicker. So I'm going to skip that step entirely, not bother putting the gloss on fully, and we're just going to use the sandpaper for that. Marginally different story for the headstock though. That I'm going to start with the same method. I'm going to go in with my 1500 and use that to kind of grain fill it like we talked about. But then afterward, I'm going to take a shop towel, go over the front and back of it, and make sure that I get kind of a nice gloss out of that area. I'm not looking for a ridiculous gloss on this, but if you are, it's pretty straightforward. It's very much the same concept. You're going to come in, do the same two steps, wait a while, sand lightly with like 800 grit so that your next layer will stick, and then build up another layer and keep doing that a few times with the poly so that you get a slightly thicker layer. If you're happy with the gloss you've got at that point, then awesome, leave it. If you're not, you just go through the polishing process like with any other finish. I've got several videos on that, so feel free to check those out. All right, that's your explanation. I'm excited to get to work on this, so without further ado, cue the B-roll. All right, guys, so that's it for the first round of application on this and for this video, because that's all I need. I've got a nice smooth kind of, whoa, satin finish on the neck. That was almost catastrophic right there. You can see there's not a whole lot of shine to it, but it does have some. That's what I'm looking for. I want my hand to move nicely, but I also want it to look good. So it's got that, yeah, kind of satin look to it. And then if we move on to the headstock, for example, let me see if I can catch a reflection. More of a semi-gloss type look, which is what I was going for on that as well, obviously, like I said. Now, again, you can build it up to a full gloss if you want to. It's a relatively straightforward process. But for this burnt kind of look, I think the classier option and the one that fits the theme a little better is to stick with the satin and semi-gloss on this. So that is it. That is how you apply a poly finish to your neck and headstock. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. I would appreciate that. Subscribe if you haven't already. We'll have other options for necks coming out. Yeah, and guitars and painting in general. You know how it is. Stick around, stay tuned, and I will see you next time.